I want to start with a word we use constantly, but I think we might be using it wrong, hope. We use it for everything. I hope there's no traffic. I hope my team wins. It's this like wispy, fragile thing.
It's passive.
It feels so passive, right? Like you're just crossing your fingers and, waiting.
That is the common usage for sure. It's basically wishful thinking.
Right.
I'm powerless here, so I'll just wish for the best.
Exactly. But what if hope wasn't an emotion? What if it wasn't something you felt, but something you did? A discipline.
Oh, yeah.
A muscle you actually have to like go to the gym and work out?
That is the shift we are making today. And frankly, it's a necessary one. Because if hope is just a feeling, the moment life gets really hard,
It's going
it evaporates. But if it's a discipline, that's when it actually kicks in.
So we're exploring that very distinction today by diving into a text that is, it's kind of a boot camp for the soul.
That's a great way to put it.
It's a daily devotional titled Hope That Never Fails. And we're specifically looking at the introduction for the month of February, written by Kang Roland Sumelong from the Faith Builders International Network.
We should probably pause on the source for a second because context is everything here. This is coming out of Cameroon.
Right.
This is not some glossy self-help book written at a comfortable office in, California.
Yeah.
Faith Builders International is dealing with real on-the-ground realities.
That stood out to me immediately. The tone isn't how to optimize your life.
No.
It reads more like a survival guide.
It really, really does. When you read texts from this region, you realize that for them, hope isn't a luxury. It's a survival mechanism. The text frames the month of February not as just a page on a calendar, but as a fresh opportunity. It talks about navigating life's pressures without, and I love this phrase, losing out.
Without losing out. That's an interesting way to put it. It implies the stakes are like really high. You can actually lose.
Precisely. In a Western context, losing out might mean, missing a promotion.
Yeah.
In this context, it often refers to despair, to a complete spiritual or emotional collapse. So when the author says hope is never passive, he's saying you literally cannot afford to be passive.
Because the pressure will just crush you.
It will crush you if you don't push back.
So the mission for this deep dive is to figure out how to push back. Because the author makes a really bold claim. He says we need to trust in God's ability and our inability.
Yeah.
And I have to admit that line kind of stopped me. It feels like an admission of defeat. I'm unable, so you do it.
I see why you'd read it that way, but I think it's actually strategic. It's not defeat. It's an accurate assessment of your resources.
Okay.
If you're trying to lift a 500-pound weight and you can only lift 100, admitting you can't lift it isn't defeat. It's the first step to getting a forklift.
I like that. A
Yeah.
forklift. The forklift in this analogy being divine power.
Right. It's acknowledging your limits so you can transcend them. And there's another phrase in the intro that I think is the engine for this whole thing.
Which one?
Expectation leads to manifestation.
Okay, now hold on. Expectation leads to manifestation. I have to play devil's advocate here because that sounds a lot like The Secret.
I knew you were going to say that.
Is this just, pop psychology wrapped in religious language? Think positive and you'll get a Ferrari.
It's a valid question.
Yeah.
Because the language is very similar, but the mechanics are completely different.
How so?
The Secret is usually about bending the universe to your will. This text is about aligning your expectation with God's promises.
So it's not about what I want, it's about what he promised.
Exactly. Think of it like the reticular activating system in your brain, the RAS. You know how if you decide you want to buy a red car, suddenly you see red cars everywhere?
Yeah, totally. It's like they just multiply overnight.
They were always there. Your brain just wasn't filtering for them. This text argues that God's movement, miracles, strength, provision is constantly happening. But if your internal state is set to despair, you physically cannot perceive it.
So expectation is just tuning your brain to see it.
It's tuning your RAS to look for the manifestation of God's work. It's not magic, it's attention.
That makes so much sense. It's about tuning the radio. If you're on the static channel, you can't hear the music, even if it's playing.
That's the why behind the text.
Yeah.
But we need to look at the what. How does the author actually define hope? Because he's very specific.
The text calls it confident trust in his promises. And it focuses on Jesus as the anchor. But what grabbed me was the call to walk boldly. It says, as we step into February, let us do so boldly.
Boldly. That's an action verb, right? It implies movement against some kind of resistance. And again, look at why this is written. The text explicitly states one of its goals is to help the reader overcome depression through God's strength.
That's a heavy word to drop in a devotional. Depression.
It is. And it tells you who this is for.
Mm-hmm.
This is not for the person who's having a great day. This is for the person struggling to get out of bed.
Wow.
The text mentions releasing grief when you have cried until there is no strength to cry again.
That line, cried until there is no strength to cry again, that's visceral. It's not just sadness, it's physical exhaustion.
It's addressing the somatic reality of grief. We
Yeah.
often treat faith as this, intellectual thing, but the author is saying, hey, your body is broken. You are empty.
Right.
And he promises that this is exactly where God's strength becomes relevant.
It validates the hopelessness first. It doesn't say, don't be sad. It says, okay, you have no strength left. Now what?
And the now what involves some surprisingly gritty advice about your social circle. Did you catch that part?
I did. It says to identify the kinds of people you should stay away from. And honestly, that sounded a little harsh for a spiritual text.
Yeah.
Aren't we supposed to love everyone? Why are we cutting people off?
It does sound harsh if you view it through the lens of, polite society.
Yeah.
But if you view it through the lens of survival, which is the context here, it's triage.
Triage.
If you are drowning, you cannot hold on to someone who is actively pulling you under.
So it's a boundary, as a spiritual quarantine.
It is. And the text pairs this advice with a very stark realization. Men may fail, but God never will.
Men may fail. That's a very polite way of saying people are absolutely going to let you down.
It is. It's a polite way of saying human beings are fallible, even the good ones. If you anchor your hope in a person, a mentor, a spouse, a leader, you are building on sand. Eventually, they will have a bad day or make a mistake, or they will leave. The author is saying, don't put the weight of your soul on a structure that isn't rated to hold it.
That's a powerful image. We're overloading our relationships by expecting them to provide a stability that only God is supposed to provide.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got the philosophy. Hope is active. People are fallible. Expectation changes reality. But what I really appreciate about this source is that it doesn't just leave you there. It gives you a literal manual.
The 8-step methodology.
Yes. And I love a numbered list. It makes the unmanageable feel manageable. But I want to break these down because they aren't just random. It feels like a system.
It is a system. I see it in 3 phases. You have the input phase, the action phase, and then the rhythm phase.
Okay, let's start with input. That's steps 1 through 3. Step 1 is read prayerfully. And step 2 is meditate on scripture.
But notice the detail in step 2. It says to read from your own Bible.
Yeah, I wondered about that. Why does it matter if it's my Bible? I mean, can I just read it on my phone?
You can, but think about the psychology of it, of ownership. When you read from a physical book that you own, you know where the verses are on the page. You remember highlighting that line 3 years ago.
It's grounded in your personal history.
Exactly. It's not just content. It's a record of your relationship with the text. It
Yeah.
becomes an artifact.
Okay, that makes sense.
And step 1, read prayerfully, is about moving from scanning to listening. Most of us just scan info. We're looking for the data. Reading prayerfully means slowing down to let the Holy Spirit speak. It changes the reading from a monologue into a dialogue.
And then we get to step 3. Pray with faith. But again, there's a specific instruction. Pray the daily prayer aloud.
Aloud. This is crucial.
Why? I mean, God can hear my thoughts, right? Why do I have to feel weird talking to myself in my living room?
It does feel weird at first,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a huge cognitive difference between thinking a thought and speaking it. Thoughts are abstract, they loop, they get stuck in negative patterns.
Especially if you're depressed.
Especially then. But speech is linear. It's physical. You're engaging your vocal cords. You're hearing it with your own ears.
You're vibrating the air with it.
Yes. You are physically making the prayer manifest in the world. It interrupts that internal negative loop. It anchors the mind.
Okay, that brings us to the action phase. Steps 4 and 5. Step 4 is the one that I think is the hardest. Live what you read.
Faith grows through obedience. This is the fake it till you make it step.
But if I'm depressed or I'm grieving, I don't want to live it. I don't feel like being bold. I don't feel like forgiving.
And that is exactly why the text says you have to do it. In psychology, we call this behavioral activation. You don't wait for the feeling to change your behavior. You change your behavior to rewire the feeling.
So you act first.
If the text says be kind and you feel angry, you do the kind act anyway. The text argues that the spiritual power, the hope, it arrives during the action, not before it.
So you step out on the water before you know if it's going to hold you.
That is the definition of faith.
And then step 5, reflect and record. Journaling. Journal what God is showing you and the changes happening within you.
This is your data collection. When you're in a crisis, your perception of time just warps. You feel like you've been stuck forever. You feel like you're making zero progress.
You forget the good days.
You forget them immediately. Journaling creates an objective record. You could look back at last Tuesday and say, oh, wait, I actually handled that situation better than I would have a month ago.
It provides the evidence.
It proves to your brain that the formula is working. Without the record, despair just lies to you and tells you nothing is changing.
It's like a scientist logging the experiment. Day 4, subject showed signs of hope.
Precisely.
Okay, moving to the final block, the rhythm phase. Steps 6, 7, and 8. Practice gratitude, be consistent, and expect God to move.
This is all about habit formation. Step 7, be consistent, is so interesting because it's not just about being a good student. It's about drilling the well before you get thirsty.
Drilling the well before you get thirsty. I like that.
If you wait until the crisis hits to start trying to find God or find hope, it's really hard. You're digging through concrete.
Yeah.
But if you have a consistent rhythm, you have a reservoir ready.
And step 6, gratitude. That's like the maintenance for that reservoir.
It's a neurological reset. Ending the day with thanks shifts the brain away from threat detection and toward resource appreciation. It lowers cortisol. It prepares you to sleep. It's just good spiritual hygiene.
And finally, step 8 brings us full circle. Expect God to move.
This is the return to expectation leads to manifestation. The text lists specific things to expect. God will speak, strengthen, heal, guide, and restore.
That's a comprehensive list. It covers communication, stamina, health, direction.
It covers pretty much everything a human being needs to function. But notice, it requires you to wake up looking for it. It's that active stance again. You aren't just doing the steps and checking a box.
Right.
You're doing the steps because you believe a response is coming.
It's a dialogue. You speak, you act, and then you wait and you watch for the reply.
Yes. And the text assures the reader that the reply will come.
I want to zoom out for a second. We've talked about the psychology and the method, but we have to talk about the foundation. The author cites Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding.
That verse is the architectural bedrock of this entire philosophy.
But do not lean on your own understanding. It's hard, especially for, smart people. We prize our understanding.
We do. But think about the context of crisis or depression. In those moments, your understanding is compromised. Your understanding is telling you, this is hopeless.
Your understanding is telling you, I will never get over this.
It's the source of the despair. Because your understanding is limited to what you can see, and what you can see is a mess. The text invites you to lean on a different understanding. It's saying, your logic has reached a dead end. Try mine.
And that leads to the other verse, Romans 15:13. May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him.
Note the order of operations there. Trust comes first. Then joy and peace fill you. Then you overflow with hope.
It's a feedback loop.
It is. You don't get the peace so that you can trust. You trust blindly sometimes, and the peace follows as a result of that.
It effectively removes the burden of the outcome from your shoulders.
It does. And for someone carrying the weight of the world, that is the greatest relief imaginable.
So let's try to synthesize this for the listener. We've got a text from Cameroon that frames hope as a survival skill.
Right.
It acknowledges that we are going to run out of strength, that we might cry until we're empty.
Correct.
And the solution it offers isn't cheer up. It's a rigorous 8-step protocol.
A regimen.
Involving vocal prayer, physical reading, behavioral activation, and even social boundaries.
It's physical therapy for a broken spirit.
And the promise is that if you do these things, if you tune that radio, you will start to see a reality that was there all along.
You'll see the manifestation of the expectation.
It's really compelling stuff. Even if you aren't religious, the psychological framework here, shifting focus, vocalizing intent, tracking progress, it's rock solid.
Absolutely. But for the believer, it offers that extra dimension. You aren't just rewiring your brain, you're connecting to a person. You are connecting to Jesus.
As we wrap up this deep dive into hope that never fails, I'm thinking about the listener who is in that, that step 4 struggle. They know what they should do, but they're paralyzed.
My advice, start with the smallest possible action. Start with step 3. Just say it aloud. Break the silence.
That's good. Don't worry about the whole staircase. Just take the one step.
Exactly.
I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on today. The text claims hope is never passive. It's an action. So if that's true, What specific action step are you avoiding right now that might be the key to the breakthrough you've been waiting for?
That is the question that changes everything.
Are you just reading about hope, or are you practicing it? Think about it. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. Catch you next time.